Alright, what is up guys, Azura here, and today we are here for possibly the last tier list we will ever be doing for Zero, because who knows if there's going to be any more actual new content for this game. But this is because next month on JP, as most of you know, there is no new sets, so for all we know, this is the last time we could be doing a tier list for this game. But yeah, this month we got a set full of fish, and as you can see here, there's one whole fish deck on this tier list. So before I even start, just preface by saying that I think for the most part, all the other fish decks are like probably within like the tier 2-ish range. Like I think Anj is pretty playable, I think Shushu's pretty playable. All the other ones kind of whatever, but I think those two specifically are like pretty playable decks, but I just didn't bother putting them here. I don't think they're particularly worth mentioning, but if you want to know, I think those two are the next most playable Bermuda decks aside from Coral. And I think those would be at best in the tier 2 range, like the lower end of tier 2 range. So yeah, so with that out of the way, we will actually start with the list. Same as usual, no changes to tiers or anything, so we'll just start from the bottom up. So this is here, I actually remember chart this time. There's Coral and there's Gize. So yeah, those are the new ones. So we just start. So well, I don't even know why I saw blasters here. I think it's forgot to take them off, but they are definitely like in this range, not very good in my opinion. Honestly, I think Asha's pretty bad too. I think Asha honestly belongs to be here. Main issue with Asha is that like, yeah, she has a bunch of resist and that is pretty good against Jet, but this deck just cannot kill like at all whatsoever. This deck has no kill power at all whatsoever. This deck, like I said, it does vomit out a board of resist, which is pretty cool against any of the removal decks, any decks that actually need to control board. But in such a Jet focused meta, with Coral being what is probably the next best deck that doesn't care about resist at all, Asha just doesn't have a niche or anything that makes it better than any of these other decks. So yeah, Asha just doesn't do enough, doesn't kill nearly hard enough. Their new, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but their GR that they got was basically an Olivia. So yeah, they got a card that was that Bermuda got in set 2 in the second last FG. So yeah, not very good. Definitely think Asha is a very mediocre deck. And I think that's it for the actual bad decks. As for rogue decks, there really isn't a whole lot to. I don't think there's any like deck you particularly take just for counter picking or anything. You could probably put Gurgit in there. Gurgit's GBT Unite is pretty cool, I guess. I have the old Gurgit, but I think people have been shifted to the new Unite Gurgit, the one that makes your Unite units back row, or your Unite units in the back row intercepts after you proc Unite during your opponent's turn, so after you guard twice. That one does have a niche. It can turn off some decks' ability to combo, so I think that's pretty cool. But overall, Gurgit has a very similar issue with Asha. I think it just doesn't kill fast enough, and this deck has also a deck out issue. So yeah, I think Gurgit can probably go here. Realistically, this tier could be empty. I think Gurgit you can move up or move down, whichever way you want. So that's it for that. And then tier 2 playable. There's probably a bunch of things you can throw in here. In no particular order for now. I'll reorder the stuff later, I guess. Yeah, this goes there. You probably go there, and you can probably no. Oh yeah, I forgot about Gize. Gize belongs down here too. Before I reorder this, I'll just quickly go over Gize. So the issue with Gize, other than the fact that it's expensive as hell and nobody can actually play it, is that because your trigger, the power from your triggers don't get applied because of Gize, you just eat a whole lot of shit. Your opponent can just rush you for free without being scared of defenses at all. The only thing your opponent has to be scared about is you stacking 5 triggers before your first stride and you just murking them with Gize. And even then, a lot of decks can actually still scale for 30k. So yeah, Gize is just too gimmicky. There's no super consistent way to actually get Gize off is the issue with Gize. If there was, someone probably would have found it by now, but it's been like a month and I don't think anyone has actually found the Gize sauce yet. So yeah, Gize a little too inconsistent. It's just an overall very sacky deck. If you see 5 triggers, you win. If you don't see 5 triggers, you lose. So yeah, Gize definitely a deck that very much defined by the name of this tier. It is a deck where if it gets to pop off, it's good, but it very much has issues. So Gize bottom up here, and we'll just quickly rearrange all of this stuff. So Hori's probably decent. I actually think Parent belongs near the bottom, to be honest. I think Kagero is pretty decent. Yeah, something like this, I guess. I think Chaos is probably pretty decent. Yeah, something like this, something like this. Very loose ordering. Fenrir. Biggest issue with Fenrir is that it plays horrendously bad into gears. That's the main thing. Against everything else, it's still pretty decent against, but like when Gears is the most popular deck and is the best deck, it is basically impossible to win with Fenrir consistently when the best deck is actively screwing you over. In a pick three, ban one kind of environment, Fenrir is probably fine just because you can ban Gears and you still do pretty well against everything else. But yeah, Fenrir just kind of loses to the best deck. Messiah, very piece reliant, no early game at all whatsoever. Those are the main issues. Bad early game. Very piece reliant. You do draw a bunch, so once you like get going on with your first and second stride onwards, your deck feels pretty good to play. But your really bad early game really does hinder you quite a bit, and backrow intercepts can hurt you a bit too because if they have too many, a lot of your rears that need to actually swing fan to proc like Lady Fencer and Arrestor don't actually work, so you're very crushed on drawing the Migas to actually extend. So yeah, it can be a little awkward, and I'm pretty sure like the majority of your Massage need to actually hit face to actually work. So again, doesn't play well into Gears either, so there's that. Thavas is yet another deck that does not play well into Gears because one Napata means you cannot Alexandros them, and if a Gear player is smart, they won't shit out all their Napata out at once. They'll put out like one or two over the course of like 2 or 3 turns to make sure you cannot go into Alexandros, because that is basically Aquaforce's only strat at this point. And because of that, when the best deck is vomiting out intercepts to the back every single turn, and you can never go into your best stride, you're just not a very good deck. I do think Thavos would probably be a lot better if Jet was not the best deck, but yeah, when Jet is the best deck, this deck kind of isn't very good. And then there's also just another better Unga Bunga combo deck now, like in Coral, so it's outclassed and it doesn't play well into the good deck. So what can you do with Thavos? Definitely falls in the same kind of issue as Fenrir, where just played bad into the good decks. Altmile. Altmile does not actually suffer of the issues of playing bad against Gears. I think Altmile actually has a pretty okay Gears matchup because Luminous Hope and Leaper both do not need to swing advantage to activate their effects, so you can actually get over their back row intercepts. This deck has okay early aggro options as well, so it's just a solid deck, but again, Altmile just doesn't feel like it pushes hard enough anymore, and the deck definitely does lack in defensive options. The deck definitely does not draw its cards very often. Not very good at drawing its cards, so something you just roll over and die, and that lack of consistency of being able to survive really hurts in my opinion. So Altmile definitely, it's still a playable deck, that's why it's here, but it's not nowhere near as it used to be. Same thing with Hari. The issue with Hari now is that other decks are also killing you a lot faster, so a lack of intercepts actually hurts because Hari has very explosive kill power, but it just doesn't. It dies because of the fact that the opponent. It dies because of the fact you don't have intercepts, and decks will just kill you because of it. So yeah, lack of defense definitely hurts. So these two decks basically have basically held back by their lack of defense. Is why they're here. Chaos. Chaos is decent, but Chaos is kind of weird where like I think Gears have a very good Chaos matchup. Actually no, I think Chaos is the biggest issue that just loses to all the good decks. It loses to Gears in my opinion, loses to Coral, loses to Shiranui. It basically loses to like every deck down here except for Luard, which honestly I think Luard probably belongs here too. But yeah, Chaos just runs an issue of losing to all the actual good decks, so yeah, not much you can do against that. When your deck loses to like every good deck, you're just kind of can't expect to be too much better. So yeah, tier 2 playable is fine. It does tick on some of the other decks, and Chaos itself is still just a playable deck overall, but again, loses to the good decks. Overlord is Overlord. I don't even know what to say about this deck. It's just Overlord. Yeah, it can deal with these decks to some degree. I think Coral probably is your worst matchup because you just kind of get your ass beaten. But yeah, Overlord, it's fine. It is Overlord. It is what it is. It's nothing too amazing, nothing terrible. It's very Overlord's probably your baseline for like a very good, well-rounded deck, and that's just what it is. So it's a good tier 2 playable deck. Luard, basically in the same camp as Overlord. I think Luard's pretty well-rounded too. I think it's like doesn't excel in anything, doesn't like feel too bad in doing anything. But yeah, biggest issue is you need to draw all your actual extenders to actually push and go for kills. You need to draw your deck does. You need to draw your Morphesas. And yeah, it's just the issue of it's a very well-rounded deck, but it just doesn't excel at anything. And that's why it's here. But I do think it's better than Overlord. So yeah. And as for tier 1 competitive decks, I think this deck goes here. Honestly speaking, we're just gonna cut these tiers down. Yeah, it's probably something like this. Yeah, something like this, I think. Yeah. So Angels, I personally did not believe in this deck, but even though it didn't have a good showing in the day 2 of CS, the fact that a bunch of like well-known and quote unquote good players brought this deck, and they all brought it being the 0 damage variant, shows that this deck clearly has something there going for it. And I obviously none of the games got shown on stream, so I don't actually know, and I've done very little testing with this deck, like post like the set it came out in. But the thought process in like a pick 3 ban 1 format is that if you ban Gears, the one deck that actually punishes you for stalling the game out, all these other decks don't exactly like can deal with you healing down to like 3 basically every single turn unless you're super unlucky, right? So the thought process here is you ban Gears, and then you hope you don't just get fucking completely steamrolled by Coral, and then you can stall out the majority of these other decks. And that's how the deck will win. You just stall your opponent out. The Harmonics nerf didn't exactly hurt this deck at all because you want your opponent to ping themselves with Harmonics, and that can do it. They can do it faster. Only downside is that they actually have CP now, so they'll actually kill you faster too. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. But yeah, Gav, I personally don't see. Actually, no. Oh, you know what? We'll move Gav down. I don't personally think this deck is too good. I can understand why those players brought it, but I personally don't see it as that good of a deck. So yeah, Angels, yeah, I'll move it down here, but still a respectable deck in my opinion. So yeah, that goes there. DI, this deck I've actually been playing a lot because this was one of the winning. This was like the third deck on the winners lineup of the most recent CS, and the deck basically just cheeses you really well. It's a deck that basically, unless the opponent heals down like 3 times, you're basically guaranteed lethal on second stride because Balam is pretty good at pushing. You flip some stands, you can stand your really big rears, and you actually push on those turns. So you can push for like a clean 2-3 damage, even past like 3 intercepts. And then on your second turn, as long as your opponent didn't like heal back down to 3, Blader Mouse is still very, very much lethal from 4 because even without being able to clear 2 intercepts out, assuming they just have 2 intercepts, rear, Blader Mouse swing, you push them to 4 or to 5 with the Blader Mouse, and then you probably have you probably flipped at least like 1 or 2 stands, so your rears with Garchers can go in, and you're basically asking your opponent for like 4 PGs from 4 consistently on second stride, and that's just very, very lethal. And depending on what's in your G zone, if they live, you can follow up with another Blader Mouse, a Balam, a Dust even. So yeah, the deck is just it's very good. It's very, very good at cleaning up the game by second stride, and I think that's something that the game or a deck really needs to be able to do because against Gears, if you go first, you need to end the game by second stride. So that's just something DI is really good at doing. So that's why it is here. And as for these 2 decks, Shiranui just still doing Shiranui things. No matter how you build the deck is still pretty good. The hand rip version deck's probably a little less good against Gears because the hand rip version of the deck basically is just trying to weaken your opponent's like their resources, and then you try to drachma them. But again, if you go first, you can't exactly do that, and Gears can try to retreat every turn anyway, so you don't exactly cripple them too hard. So a more like Unga Bunga hit base kind of version of the deck is probably better for Gears, for a gear-centered meta. And yeah, Shiranui is pretty good doing that. But the only issue with Shiranui is that this deck also has a relatively bad early game. All your grade 2s you ideally want to hold for GB 1 and onwards, and the deck that is ahead of it, being Coral, is really good at playing early, playing a really good early game. And we'll just move on to Coral. So yeah, Shiranui, it's a deck that has a really good like mid to late game, slightly worse early game, but what it does mid to late game is strong enough to push it like over all these other decks. And then finally, the last deck we'll have in tier 1 competitive is Coral, because this deck just has a really, really strong early. The deck's just really good. It's good at killing on first stride. It has a really good early game, and it sits on big numbers, making it harder for your opponent to scale against you. Because 13k base is quite hard to scale against for some decks. most decks are not accustomed to making 18k columns or like 18k columns intervals of 18. So because of that, Coral is good defensively and really strong offensively. The deck does draw a lot too, so you definitely do draw into your guards. You will definitely see like at least 1 or 2 PGs a game just because you're drawing through your deck really fast and you're thinning the deck out as well. So really good there. But the only reason I won't put it in the same tier, obviously I will put Jet into here again, is because the deck does run into some slight inconsistency issues. First off, it is a ride chain deck, so you do need to find your ride chain to secure that smooth like early game. And if you don't find it, it can be kind of awkward. Two, finding your ride is actually pretty hard. You don't have a dedicated like actual like grade 1 that can search ride or like something that can like guarantee you your ride. If you whiff off the grade 1 off the ride line, or if you whiff off of the double rare grade 1 checks top 5, sometimes you're just in a game state where you're grade stuck, and that is not exactly an uncommon occurrence. I think it's happened on stream during the CS like 3 or 4 times. So inconsistency definitely issue this deck, and this deck does not have a backup ride either. You have to ride this new Coral. If you don't ride this new Coral, you are really screwed. So because of slight inconsistency issues, I personally do not think this deck is as good as Jet. And the other thing is you have to draw under Crux, the grade 0 stand. If you don't draw those, you cannot extend at all whatsoever. So because of all those slight inconsistency factors, they all add up bit by bit, and because of that, in my opinion, I don't think Coral is as good as Jet. And obviously, the best deck is Jet, in my opinion, because the best way to put it is that Jet is just a consistent all-around deck that just does everything, and then has a really bullshit win con on third stride with the heritage. And yeah, I don't think there's a lot out to say. The deck it multi-attacks a lot. It just has everything. Has a restanding van, or like has a restanding van. It has multi-attack. It can tutor for basically whatever it wants in the deck. Jet is a +3 every single turn, and then third stride, game over. Heritage, 2 turns in a row. So yeah, there really isn't a whole lot to say. It was like 70% of day 1 of CS, and it was 100% of day 2 of CS. So I think those numbers themselves show how good this deck is. So yeah, it just really isn't anything else to say. Jet is the best deck. I don't think it is anything you can just dispute. I think Jet is 100% unanimous the best deck in the game right now. I think the only thing you can argue is you could maybe argue Coral with Jet, but I personally do not think so. So it is my tier list after all, so I personally do not think Coral is as good as Jet, and that is why I will leave Jet as the sole top deck of the meta right now. And that's it for what might possibly be the last tier list of 0, but you never know. So yeah, tell me guys what you think about the meta of this meta down below in the comments. Like and subscribe with the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.